You've probably wondered at some point why your favorite app takes forever to get a new feature. Well, that delay, it's right at the heart of one of the biggest shifts happening in technology today, the massive move to the cloud. In this explainer, we're going to break down how modernizing applications is changing, well, pretty much everything.
So let's start with a feeling we all know, right? That frustration when you're waiting and waiting for an app update. That gap between wanting a new feature and actually getting it, it's not just you being impatient. It's actually a sign of a much bigger technical problem. And that is exactly what we're going to dive into today. So here's our game plan. We'll kick things off by looking at the old, slow way of doing things and see how the cloud flips that on its head. Then we'll get into how modern apps are built from scratch and what you do with all those older apps you still rely on. We'll also uncover the secret sauce that connects it all, APIs, before we wrap up by looking at the super flexible future of hybrid and multi-cloud setups. All right, first up, old problems, new solutions. Look, to really get where we're going, we first have to understand where we've been. This section is all about the journey from being slow and clunky to fast and flexible. Okay, this slide right here, it pretty much tells the entire story. On the left, you've got the old way, software updates that took months, not days. Huge specialized IT teams just totally bogged down in maintenance. But on the right, you see the cloud. It's agile, it's scalable, and it frees up your best people to actually create the next cool thing, not just keep the lights on for what you already have. But, getting that kind of speed isn't just about picking up your stuff and moving it to the cloud. Nope. It's about building for the cloud. And that brings us to our second section, completely rethinking how we design our applications from the ground up. And this slide is a perfect illustration of that big shift. For years, apps were built as monoliths. Think of one giant interconnected block of code. If you wanted to change one tiny little thing, you had to test and redeploy the entire application. It was a nightmare. The modern way uses microservices, which breaks that big app into a bunch of small, independent services. This means you can update, deploy, or scale just one little piece of the app without messing with anything else. It's a total game changer.
And the benefits here are just huge. Faster releases mean you get new features out to your users way quicker. You only pay for what you use, which is so much more efficient. And you get this incredible flexibility. You can scale way up for a big event and then scale right back down the next day. Plus, reliability is just built right in. You get tools like load balancing. Think of it as a traffic cop for your app, making sure no single part gets overwhelmed. And automatic failover, which is like having a backup generator that kicks in instantly if something goes wrong.
Okay, so that all sounds great for brand new apps. But what about the hundreds of applications that businesses already have and completely rely on every single day? This brings us to the challenge of migrating those legacy apps and a very common strategy you'll hear about called lift and shift. So what exactly is rehosting or lift and shift? Well, it's pretty much what it sounds like. You essentially lift an application as is from its old home on a server in your building, and you shift it over to a cloud environment. The key here is you do this without making any major changes to the app's code. It's the fastest way to get an existing app running in the cloud.
But, and this is a big but, this approach is not a magic wand. For sure, you can get some quick wins like saving money and getting better scalability, but the move itself can be really complex. And there's a big one to watch out for on the cons list: vendor lock-in. That's when you get so dependent on one cloud company's tools that trying to move to a different provider later becomes incredibly difficult and super expensive. Now, whether you're building shiny new microservices or trying to connect your older apps, there's a critical piece of tech that makes it all work together. Let's talk about APIs. They are the secret ingredient that lets all these different programs talk to each other.
So what in the world is an API? Honestly, the best way to think about it is as a universal translator for software. It's basically a set of rules that lets different applications communicate and share info. And they don't need to know anything about each other's complex internal code. It's the language that makes the internet work. My absolute favorite way to explain this is with a simple analogy. Just think of an API as a waiter in a restaurant. You, the customer, don't need to know how the kitchen is run, right? You just need to know how to order from the menu and talk to the waiter. Let's walk through it. Your app, that's the customer, makes a request. The API, our friendly waiter, takes that request to the other program, the kitchen. The kitchen does its thing and prepares the order. Then the API brings the response, your food, or in this case, your data, right back to your app. It's that simple, but it is incredibly powerful. And this is huge because APIs aren't just a tech tool, they're a business strategy. Take a company like AccuWeather. They use APIs to let other developers use their amazing weather data. This creates totally new products and brings in new money. By opening up your data or services through an API, you can generate new revenue, form powerful partnerships, and really drive innovation. All right, this brings us to our final section where we put all the pieces together. Because the future isn't really about choosing just one path. It's about finding the perfect cloud balance for your own unique needs.
And it's really important to start with a little reality check. Despite all the hype you hear, the vast majority of big business computing still happens in private, on-premises data centers. The move to the cloud is a journey, and it's often a gradual one, driven by real-world things like security regulations or operational needs.
And that reality is what leads so many companies to a hybrid cloud strategy. This is where you connect your own private data center with public cloud services, basically getting the best of both worlds. Your data and apps can move back and forth between the two, giving you some serious flexibility. Now, there's a related idea, but it's a little different, and that's multi-cloud. This is where a company decides, hey, I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket. So they use services from multiple different public cloud providers, like Google Cloud, AWS, and Azure. So if hybrid cloud is about mixing public and private, multi-cloud is about mixing different public clouds. So you might be wondering, why go through all this trouble? Well, it all comes down to strategic choice. You get the flexibility to keep certain things on premises if you need to. You can pick and choose the absolute best services from each cloud provider for different jobs. It lets you find the best prices, and, crucially, it helps you avoid getting locked in with a single vendor. And that leaves us with the final and most important question. It's no longer about if you should use the cloud, but how. From building with microservices and connecting with APIs to choosing a hybrid or multi-cloud strategy, the modern toolkit is all about giving you flexibility and choice. The real challenge now is figuring out what is the right cloud mix for your future.